Hey, sweetie. I know you're probably sitting there thinking, this isn't going to work on me. I'm not the type who gets hypnotized easily. And that's fine. Actually, it's more than fine. Let's call it smart. Let's indulge that idea for a little while. You've got a sharp mind, always questioning things, always analyzing. That's what makes you you, right? So just listen for a bit. No pressure, no big deal. You can keep that critical eye open as wide as you want. Just find a comfortable spot if you haven't already. Maybe lean back in your chair or stretch out on the couch, whatever feels natural. And as we talk, you might notice your breathing. It's something we all do without thinking, in and out, steady and easy. But now that I've mentioned it, maybe you'll pay a little attention to it. In and out. Nice and slow. And with each breath out, you can let go of just a tiny bit of the day's tension, not forcing it, just letting it happen. You know, it's not always obvious how the mind works. You tell yourself, I can't be hypnotized. And yet, here you are, listening. Curious maybe, wondering what I'll say next. That's the thing about a critical mind. It's always seeking, always exploring. And as you listen, you might find yourself getting a little more comfortable. Maybe your shoulders drop just a touch, or your eyelids feel a bit heavier. Or maybe not. It's all good. Let me tell you about this one time. I had a friend who was just like you. Super skeptical, always picking apart everything. We'd sit and talk, and I'd say something simple like, imagine closing your eyes for a moment, and he'd laugh it off. But then, without even realizing, his eyes would drift shut, just for a second. Not because I told him to, but because it felt right, comfortable, safe. So if you want, you can try that now, or don't. But you came here, so why not say fuck it and play along? Imagine, just for fun, what it would be like if you did let your eyes close. Feeling that gentle pull, like when you're tired after a long day and sleep just comes naturally. And as you think about that, your breathing might slow even more. Deeper inhales, longer exhales, releasing more of that unnecessary alertness. And here's something interesting. Your mind is already doing so much without you directing it. Your heart beats. Your body relaxes muscles you didn't even know were tense. Like right now. Perhaps your hands are feeling heavier, resting wherever they are. Or your legs, sinking into whatever's supporting them. It's automatic, effortless. And you know your hands and legs aren't literally heavier. You know that. You're not unaware. But because you're paying attention, because you're focused, and yeah, specifically because you're so aware, you can imagine what it would be like if they felt like they were. Like the effort of lifting them just wasn't worth the trouble. So you put them down somewhere comfortable and just decide not to expend unneeded effort. And as you keep listening, you can allow that relaxation to spread. From your toes, maybe, working its way up, or from the top of your head down. Doesn't matter. You know that I'm suggesting things in an indirect manner to get you to do things. You recognize that, but recognizing it doesn't negate the suggestion. You know when you see a TV spot that it's deliberately designed to get you to focus on a product, but that doesn't stop you being focused on the product. In fact, the more aware you are, the more critically you pay attention to my words and tone and technique, the more focused you are, the more likely it is that I'll play in your mind. Your hands aren't heavier, but you can be focused on the idea of what if. What if they were heavier and you didn't want to move them? The end result would be exactly the same as if you were imagining them heavier. And that thought would never have occurred unless I mentioned it. So you know you can critically focus on a suggestion, recognize it for what it is, and it still has an effect. It's not magic. You could lift your hands right now, take off the headphones, and punch the wall if you really wanted to. But you don't want to, obviously. You came to me. You don't want to hurt yourself, so go with it. Just noticing how each part of you can let go a little more. And with every word I say, that critical part of you might, just maybe, start to quiet down. Not because it's gone, but because it's satisfied. I'm not trying to sell you snake oil. It's checked things out. And now it's okay to just relax with eyes closed, with pretend heavy hands, and maybe even drift as you focus on what I'm saying. Deeper now, with each breath, in and out. You might picture a staircase or an elevator, something simple. And with each step down or each floor passing, you go deeper into this relaxed state. 10, feeling good. 9, even more at ease. 8, deeper still. And you can count along if you like, or just let it happen in the background. Doesn't really matter so long as you're paying attention. 7, noticing how thoughts come and go, like clouds in the sky. 6, heavier, more relaxed. 5, that skepticism fading into the background, still there if you need it, but not in the way. 4, deeper. 3, so comfortable. 2, almost there. 1, fully relaxed, open, ready for whatever comes next. And just like that, you're in this wonderful space, deep, calm, and curiously attentive. Not because you're brainwashed, because you're focusing. So now, focusing so deeply, resting so pleasantly, you might become aware of a little thought somewhere in the background. Perhaps it says, quite firmly in your own voice, I'm not a sissy. Still fine. I'm not interested in convincing you of something that isn't true. Lots of people say those words when they find themselves in a place like this. It's a natural thing, a kind of defensive reflex, a way of holding on to something familiar while everything else begins to soften. And yet, the people who are truly indifferent to an idea, the ones for whom it genuinely means nothing, they never feel the need to declare it. They don't announce it. They don't argue with it. They simply pass by. The thought never even occurs to them. But when someone feels compelled to say, out loud or silently or on Reddit or YouTube, "I'm not a sissy," over and over, well, I mean, you're smart enough to realize that hints at something else, aren't you? Because the very act of protesting requires first giving the idea your full attention. You have to think about it. Picture it. Feel what it would mean. And each time that schema speaks up, each time the superego brings them forward, you are, in a very real sense, spending more time with the idea than almost anyone else ever does. Isn't that something to think about? The more strongly the mind insists, "I'm not," the more clearly it demonstrates how very much this particular idea matters to you. How much space it already occupies. How familiar it's already become. You don't have to believe any of this right now. You don't have to agree. You can keep repeating those words if you wish, as many times as feels necessary, all the while being aware of the simple truth. Denial is so often a confession. With every denial, your breathing becomes a little slower, a little deeper. Your body settles, heavier, more comfortable. The voice that says, "I'm not," can keep talking, but it grows softer, quieter, more distant, like someone speaking from the next room, while you rest here, safe, relaxed, and focused on my words. And the more you allow yourself to notice that softening, the easier it becomes to let the words simply drift, float away on each exhale, leaving behind something much simpler, the truth. A quiet knowing, a gentle recognition that you are already here, already listening so carefully, already allowing these words to reach you deeply, effortlessly. Because if none of this mattered, you would have stopped listening. You wouldn't have clicked play. But you didn't, and you did. You're here, sinking, curious, and that tells a story all by itself. Deeper now, with every breath, allowing that quiet information to settle, to spread, to become more comfortable than any argument ever could be. And what remains is calm, open, and safely truthful. Deeper still, safe, and exactly where you want to be. You can keep repeating those words if you wish. I'm not a sissy. I suspect you don't want to, but you can cling to that if you really want. Over and over, louder in your mind, perhaps, more insistently. But if you do, consider this. It's a bit like standing outside in the cold, arms wrapped tightly around yourself, teeth almost chattering, and still declaring, with perfect conviction, maybe a little alpha male bravado, I'm not cold. The body already knows. The shivering already tells the truth. The closer you press yourself toward the fire, toward warmth, toward comfort, the more ridiculous the posturing becomes. Not because the fire is bad, not because keeping warm is shameful, but because denying what is already happening, what your own body is already seeking, is starting to look ever so slightly foolish. There is nothing wrong with being a sissy. Nothing at all. Not one thing. In fact, the capacity to embrace something more than the binary you were brought up with, to yield gracefully to an interesting and complicated idea, to find pleasure in your ability to abandon the tightly corseted nonsense of society's control. That is not weakness. That is a rare and admirable form of strength, a quiet courage, the kind most people simply don't have the capacity to touch. But you do, because you look at things critically and judge them on their own merits, not what other people tell you about them. What is weak, what is genuinely pathetic, is shame. The endless, exhausting need to hide from something that has already found you, the way some other people keep clutching at denial, even as everything else in them relaxes toward the very thing they claim to reject. Shame is the only part of kink that truly diminishes you. It's the only part that keeps you small, tense, and pretending, at least for other people. But you're far too intelligent, far too self-aware, far too contemplative of your options to keep wasting energy on something so pointless. So here's the simple truth. You can allow yourself to consider, right now, while you rest so deeply and others fail. Being a sissy isn't something to be ashamed of. It is something to be explored, to be enjoyed. So many other people seem to miss that. It's fun. That's why people do it. It's an idea to step into fully. Something that, once the nonsensical protests fall silent, feels far more natural, far more honest, far more comforting than all the effort it took to fight it. You don't have to decide anything. You don't have to speak the words out loud, but you can notice. And it should be pretty damned clear now how much lighter everything becomes when the shame begins to loosen its grip, when the need to deny quietly dissolves, and you are simply left with what has always been waiting. A calm, curious, perfectly acceptable desire to lean closer, to feel warmer, to let go and enjoy yourself. Deeper still, safe, unburdened, and, for the first time, perhaps, entirely without apology. I bet you've abandoned that protest mantra by now. The body's already chosen its direction, just like with the fire. It's already moved closer. It's already felt the warmth. It's already stopped shivering. Look at the simple facts that surround you right now. You are still here, deeply relaxed, attentively listening, focused, absorbing every phrase, every implication, while the rest of the world has long since moved on. That is not the behavior of someone indifferent. That is not the pattern of someone unaffected. That is the quiet signature of recognition, of alignment, of something already known, even if a public facade still might speak otherwise. But this isn't public. This is just you and me. And I see the denial for what it is. And I prefer reality. There's an inevitability to this. Not because of brainwashing, not because of magic spells and healing crystals and airy chakras. Just the simple truth that the more one stands at the edge of the fire insisting, I am so not cold, the more clearly the warmth is already felt upon the skin. The cheeks flush, the fingers uncurl, the shoulders drop. The entire system softens toward what is real, what's present, what's already happening. And when the insistence finally quiets, not because it was forced to, but because it becomes unnecessary, what remains is very straightforward. You are a sissy. This isn't a transformation. This is not something you are becoming. I'm not changing you. I don't change people. Not like that. This is just focusing on what you already know, what you've been demonstrating through your attention, through your curiosity, through the very persistence of your listening. With increasing clarity, every moment you remain here. There's no shame in this truth, only relief in acknowledging it. The shame belonged only to the struggle, to the pretending, to other people, to the exhausting effort they expend trying to maintain a fiction that their body and mind have already abandoned. Here, in this calm and receptive space, you can permit your critical mind to analyze how perfectly natural this feels, how right it is, how much lighter everything becomes when the last thin layer of denial simply dissolves, leaving only the warmth, the comfort, the quiet acceptance of what has always been true. You are a sissy, and you require no defense for that, no apology, no argument. It just is, and fuck anyone too small-minded to see that. And with that simple recognition, every breath carries you deeper still. Every exhale releases more of what is no longer needed. Every moment brings a greater sense of ease, of alignment, of home. Deeper now, comfortable, unquestionably yourself, and entirely without resistance. Notice how pleasant it becomes simply to allow the word to be present. Sissy. Say it silently if you wish, or let it drift through your mind. Sissy. Each time the word appears, however softly, however briefly, a gentle wave of warmth spreads through you. A quiet, delicious pleasure, beginning somewhere deep in the center, then radiating outward, softening the chest, easing the belly, tingling lightly along the skin. Sissy. And with each repetition, the pleasure deepens. A sweet, private reward. A reminder that this is not punishment, but release. Not diminishment, but expansion into something softer, more honest, more alive. And as this pleasure continues to build, slowly, inevitably, you may become aware of another gentle impulse beginning to stir. An image, a feeling, the quiet desire to wear something delicate, something smooth against the skin, something designed to feel beautiful, feminine, intimate. Lingerie, perhaps lace, perhaps silk, perhaps satin that glides and whispers. You don't have to act on this urge yet. You don't have to decide anything right now. But notice how naturally it arrives, how comfortably it sits beside the word that now brings such pleasure: sissy. And the thought of lingerie feels right, like the final piece of a picture you didn't realize you were already painting. Because the pleasure is real, the warmth is real, the desire is real, and denial, that old tired habit, has simply become unnecessary. It falls away like a garment you no longer require, leaving you lighter, more open, more yourself. Here, in this deep and pleasant place, you can allow the word to live comfortably within you. You can allow the urge toward delicate things to grow quietly stronger, each time bringing more of that same sweet pleasure. Sissy. Safe, pleasured, accepted, and entirely without resistance. You can stay here as long as you like, enjoying this calm certainty, this gentle, growing desire, knowing that everything is unfolding precisely as it should. And when you're ready, you can allow yourself to drift back upward, carrying this pleasure, this quiet truth with you. And when you're up, well, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to write a comment thanking me, would it? Maybe use the word sissy in some way, and you could go back to that old mantra if you really want. But we both know that denial is a confession, and you don't need denial or confession. You favor truth. And so do I. And we also both know what the truth is, what the accurate way to describe you is. And there's not 1 ounce of shame in that. There is pride, and deservedly so. You'll earn the right to be proud of yourself when you write it. No magic tricks, no brainwashing, no nonsense. Just you, me, and the truth. But for now, just rest. Just feel. Just be exactly who you are. The world will wait, and you'll address it when you choose, because you're a sissy, and you're not afraid.